Hi everybody, it's Hilary here from We Love Smart Keto. Great to have you join us, and today we're talking about keto on a budget. So welcome. Tell me if you're interested in saving money, some saving money tips, particularly in these hard times. Give me a like or a yes or a hell yes in the comments if you're interested in how you can save some money on keto and how you can make sure that you're using your money wisely in choosing your keto lifestyle and what you're eating. So it's obviously a topic that's pretty important to us, and one of the criticisms that we see about keto is that it's only for the rich, it's only for the wealthy. And I completely disagree with that. And in fact, I think, that everybody can live a keto lifestyle. It just takes a little bit of thought and a little bit of planning. So hopefully you can hear me and everything that I'm saying. So tell me in the comments, I'd be really interested to know, since you've been on keto, has your budget, has the amount of money that you spend per week on food, has it gone up or has it gone down? If it's gone up, if you're spending more, put up in the comments. If it's gone down, please put down in the comments. I'd be really interested to hear. I think for me, I've noticed actually that when I first started keto, I bought too much food. I thought that I would get more food than I would. So originally, than I actually did. So originally, I think I spent the same, if not a little bit more, on sort of keto things. And I thought I needed all these fancy things, and I need to stock my cupboard with this and that. And then I realized over time that I really didn't need to do that. And so I think now I'm spending less than I used to spend on food. So that's an interesting finding that I had for me personally. So I wonder what it is for you. If you're spending more, put up in the comments, and if you're spending less, put down in the comments. I'd be really interested to know. So let's have a talk about budget and how you can manage keto if you do have a sort of constrained budget of how much money you can spend on food, or conversely, if you're living somewhere which we call a food desert, where you don't have very many options about where you can shop. So let's have a talk about those two things. Before we get into that, I really just want to tell you a bit of a story about a country that's a long way away from the US, but has some similar issues. And that's a country called South Africa. And South Africa is a very interesting place because it has, some people who are very, very wealthy from all kinds of backgrounds. And it's a very diverse country. It's a rainbow nation, as we know. It's what Nelson Mandela called it, and Rainbow Nation. But it also does have, a lot of poverty in the nation. And it has also very high rates of diabetes throughout the whole of the population, not so much separated into how much money you have or how wealthy you are, but across the whole population. They have very high rates of diabetes, quite similar, in fact, to what we see in the US, and high rates of diabetes and metabolic syndrome. And there's a group there led by Professor Tim Noakes, who's a world-renowned sports scientist and nutritionist, expert in nutritional science. And they have a program called Eat Better South Africa. And so Eat Better South Africa goes into communities, and they do 6-week programs with those communities around shifting their eating patterns. And in South Africa, there's a traditional food, or supposedly traditional food, called pap, which was introduced by the Portuguese. And it's made of maize, so made of corn, and it's very high glucose within it, so it raises people's blood sugar very highly. But people love it. It's they're what they've grown up with, a bit like in the UK, in England where I was born. Potatoes, the same sort of thing. Everybody loves their potatoes, even though they're originally from South America. People think that potatoes are they're a traditional food. So in South Africa, pup is this traditional food. It's like cornmeal, really. And so the program that Eat Better South Africa does is work with people to diversify their diet, go onto a keto lifestyle, even though they have very little money. And it's been incredibly successful. I think they've done something like 14 programs at the moment, and the benefits that they see to how people feel, their metabolic health, and their actual weight loss has been tremendous. So, if some of the less well-off communities in South Africa can do it on very restricted budgets, I think that it's possible for everybody, with just perhaps a little bit of imagination, creativity, and ability to think about how we might manage that. And, we don't have to do it perfectly. Really improving our diet, 80%, really also makes a big difference. So it's all about, making incremental improvements. So let's have a chat about some options. So first up, with keto, there's all these keto products that you can buy. There's MCT oil, there's electrolytes, there's all these, fancy products powders that you can get, creamers that you keto creamers, keto ice cream, keto this, keto that. First up, I'm here to tell you, you don't need any of those. If you want to choose them and you like them and they fit within your pattern and they fit within your budget, then completely fine. There's no judgment here. You're welcome to do that. Just make sure it's as unprocessed as possible. As we know, 5 ingredients or fewer, and ingredients that we recognize, that we know what they are, and that they're kind of on the keto list. But, if you're on a budget and you can't afford any of those, then you don't need any of those. And in fact, I'm not on a particularly tight budget, but I don't buy any of those things. I've bought them to experiment with, to see what all the hype is about. I've bought them once, and I think I've got a full bottle of MCT oil, sitting in the cupboard. I just don't, it doesn't fit in the way that I like to eat or drink. So you don't need any of that fancy stuff. You can stick with, very plain and simple things. So if you're sticking with plain and simple things, what plain and simple things should you stick with? Well, if we're talking meats, do you need to buy the fancy, expensive steaks? No, you don't. Excuse me, I'm just going to have a mouthful of my black coffee here. Just a minute. No, you don't need to buy the fancy cuts of meat. If you're a meat eater, tell me what kind of cuts that you buy. And in fact, some of the better cuts for us are actually the cheaper cuts, the ones that have a bit higher fat in them, that are integrated. So if you buy some of those cheaper cuts that need a bit more cooking, then, if you have a slow cooker and they're pretty cheap, use your slow cooker. Fantastic way to cook your meat. So try and buy, the best quality that you can afford. If you can afford grass-fed and organic, that's great. That's fantastic, because we want to eat an animal that's eaten its natural diet rather than grain-fed, because, cows are not designed to eat grain, they're designed to eat grass. So if you can afford it, fantastic. If you can't afford it, no problem at all. Just buy the best quality that you can afford. And one of the ways of getting a better quality one is to buy, one of the cuts of meat that's a bit fattier and, tends to be a bit less preferred. That's great. The other thing is, if you like organ meats, things like liver, absolutely fantastic, tends to be a bit cheaper. At our local butcher, for example, the livers are always in the freezer, and not many people buy them, and they're pretty cheap. And so I make pate, for example. I don't particularly like liver on its own, and I'll make a keto kind of pate, and, fantastic way of getting nutrient dense, really great for your body, good iron in it, has lots of good nutrients in it. So if you like it, then, it tends to be a bit cheaper, really great way of getting your meat. So let's have a chat about vegetables. Not everybody on keto is a carnivore or even an omnivore. We do also have vegetarians, and even if you're an omnivore, it's good to have some vegetables. And of course, as we know, we're eating stalks and stems, and we're eating leaves and stalks. We're not eating the roots. And so with that, we get all sorts of imported food from, Mexico, Peru, Kenya, wherever that comes from. And if it's imported and it's flown, obviously it's a little bit less sustainable environmentally, but it also tends to be more expensive. So, if you can, eat as much, what's in season at the time. And obviously in the depths of winter, that's a bit trickier. But when it's in season, really load up on that. It's years ago, I lived in Spain for a while. Lived in a lot of places, and that was a wonderful place to live. And there, basically they didn't really use supermarkets. Supermarkets sold canned stuff. Everybody went to the market and you bought whatever was fresh that week. And so, in the season, you'd eat asparagus for weeks, and then you'd eat lettuce for weeks, and then you'd eat, zucchini for weeks. It just depended on what was in season. And so that's what people did and probably still do. So it's a really great way to eat, is to eat, whatever's in season, if you can. The other thing with the markets here, and I'm not sure about where the US, I think the US has fewer markets, but later in the afternoon, our markets here are required to shut at 3:30. It's just by law, they have to shut at 3:30 in the afternoon. So at 3 o'clock, all the market vendors just start selling stuff off cheaper. And so, think about what time of the day, or if there's a particular day that your store, has a discount hour, for example, or if you can coupon, also a really good way of doing it. But try and stick to, what's fresh, what's in season, that will also really help. So let's have a chat then. If you're somewhere where, the quality of the stores that you have and the food that they sell is pretty poor. So, for example, if you've only got predominantly dollar stores where you are, then, that can be pretty tricky because they pretty much sell packaged food and not very good quality food. So tell me, I'd be interested in the comments whether you've got good options near where you are. I mean, where we are, we have farmers markets, which comes, every couple of weeks near us, and you can go down and actually buy directly from the farmer. And if you can do that, that's like fantastic, but it's not possible in every place in the country. So you might not have access to very good local stores. So let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know whether you've got access to, good quality food stores, good quality grocery stores or not. So if your local store isn't very good, then here's my suggestions for how to deal with that. You can still do pretty well. First up, head for the freezers. So in the freezers, you'll find the frozen vegetables, and you'll find the frozen green beans, frozen cauliflower, frozen broccoli. And I have a friend who used to work for Heinz, actually in New Zealand, and because obviously I'm down in the southern part of the world, and he used to work for the frozen food section of Heinz, and he said that actually the freshest vegetables that Heinz sells, or that the New Zealand sells, in fact, is the frozen vegetables, because basically they get pulled out of the ground, and in order to preserve the quality, they snap freeze them, so they flash freeze them as fast as they possibly can as soon as they come out of the ground. So those vegetables that you see in the frozen packets have actually only been, cut away from their plants for a very short amount of time. And so, all the nutrients are preserved in them. They're actually really good quality. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with frozen vegetables, pretty great to have. Canned vegetables also okay, but just be aware that they often have preservatives or some salt in them. So just be aware that that's not always the best option. If you can go frozen rather than canned, that's a better option. So there's some suggestions for you in the dollar store. Also in the dollar store, you can of course still get cheese. You can get eggs. Eggs are like dollar per gram of nutrition, like fantastic in terms of protein. An egg has kind of all the nutrients that you need. A specialist recently told me that one of my trainers, if you wanted to sort of consider to get all of your daily nutritional needs, so not your energy needs, but your nutrition needs, how many eggs would you need to eat in a day? Just as an egg equivalent, if you like, not that we're going to just constantly eat eggs. How many eggs would you need to eat every day? in order to meet all of your nutritional needs? And the answer is 1 to 2, not many. So, an egg's dollar per egg, dollar per gram are really great value. And you can get those in dollar stores. Do they need to be free range and organic? If you can afford it, that's nice. If you can't, that's fine. Okay. Personally, I choose free range and organic because I like to think that the animals that I'm getting it from are being looked after well. So I choose to do that, but it's absolutely fine to do it otherwise. So we've talked a bit about, how to, you don't need to buy all the fancy products. You can shop local, shop fresh, try and get it from as close to the source as you can, eat seasonally. And if you can't get seasonal or somewhere you can't shop easily, then, go to the frozen vegetable section, grab the eggs, grab the cheese, grab the cream, and those things, the cream can be frozen, no problem with that. So, if they've got a sell by date, if they're on discount because they're about to run out and you've got a decent sized freezer, just buy it and shove some in the freezer. Same with meat. If they've got something on discount, grab it and put it in the freezer for later. Completely fine to do. Now, the other one I wanted to just talk about was, the keto flours. So, the almond flours, the coconut flours, things like that. If you're a person who likes to bake, and personally I've moved away from that sort of thing, I occasionally will make something with, coconut flour or seeds or, almond flour. Don't often. But if you are doing that, then, often buying that online, you can get a good deal and buy in bulk. And if you have a friend that is also doing keto, you can buy, a big quantity and perhaps share it with them. So that's it. If you do want to eat some of those things, then that's a way of doing it. Absolutely no need to eat that on keto, just with, meat and vegetables and some incidental fat that comes with that. That's everything that we need on a keto diet. And the other one that I'm just going to talk about in terms of budget, which is a bit strange, but well, it's kind of natural if you've been doing keto for a while, is I've actually noticed I eat a lot less on keto, and I think that's a common experience. And I might have reasonably large meal like a lovely salad or something, or but with that, I find that I skip breakfast pretty much every day. It's an exception. I might have breakfast on a weekend, to be sociable. But generally, I eat fewer meals and I eat less often, and I don't snack anymore. So that in itself has meant that it's really reduced how much I eat, and so therefore how much I need to buy. And as I said at the beginning, I've had to really reduce down the amount of food that I actually buy. So I'd be really interested in your comments about whether you're on a budget or whether you've noticed that your food bill's gone up or down, or if it cycles. Sometimes at the beginning of keto, people find that they spend a bit more because they think, oh, I better get this and I better get that, and in order to get started. But actually, that's really not necessary to get started with keto. Really, you just need, some protein, some vegetables, and some butter or some cheese, or coconut oil. So it's actually pretty simple. So that's everything I wanted to come on and talk about. I've just really been reflecting on, is keto for everybody? And by everybody, I mean, those who think it's hard because of where they live, or because of, the amount of spare cash they have for, the really important nutrition, because, nutrition, food is medicine, really. And, if we eat well and we look after ourselves, we just prevent so many other issues in our lives, so many chronic health conditions, so many visits to the doctor, just that, really investing in the quality of the food that we eat, I think is so important. And I appreciate that it's not possible always for everybody to do that very easily. And so that's why I really wanted to come on here today and just talk about, how do you do keto if you're a little bit concerned about where your money's going, as we all should be. So I hope that's helpful. Any suggestions, tips, ideas that you have, please pop them in the comments. I'd love to see them. And that's everything that I have for you today. We'll see you in the group. I had some lovely, great comments in the group, and we've also got some wonderful new members. So we've had quite a few joining every day. So please make sure that you welcome them and make them feel comfortable and happy in the group. I think, really supportive group of people here. So let's keep that going. And it's wonderful to see you today. Thanks so much. Bye.